Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium eSports coverage of the 14th round of Season 2 of Monday Night Racing, presented by Tufco Flooring. The Big Green Egg 100 at iRacing's virtual Rockingham Speedway in Rockingham, North Carolina. James Pike, the voice of Podium eSports here. Alongside our team, as per usual, Taylor Burris, Blake McCandless, Ryan Bauer, tonight's producer. And Taylor, this is arguably the greatest test for a driver of any of the ovals in iRacing. We'll run with the street stocks tonight, but this is a track that isn't too big, isn't too small, isn't too flat, but isn't necessarily banked all the way around either. You get a mix of a little bit of everything. And oh, by the way, this place eats tires for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert.
It certainly does, and good evening, everyone. The Rockingham Speedway is by far one of the most challenging tracks. Even though its design may be simple in some aspects of it, it will definitely eat you up and spit you out. So definitely this track is going to be difficult for some drivers, especially in these street stocks. Watching during here in practice here today, a lot of drivers struggling with off-corner exit, trying to keep the car from not getting sideways from them. So we're going to have to keep an eye and see how these drivers are going to be able to negotiate both the heat races and tonight's feature race.
In comparison to some of the other mile length tracks that we have on the service plate, and especially on the oval side, you think of some of the tracks that you would compare, the New Hampshires, the Phoenixes, places of that ilk, Gateway to some degree in that discussion as well, but they're all flat. You don't really have too many tracks at this length that have this much banking in the corners. But this place also narrows up in certain spots as well, especially coming out of turn 2 and to some degree out of turn 4. So you carry a lot of speed around here for a track that's just over a mile in length, and that makes it even trickier to navigate.
Well, I think not only with that, it's that every part of this racetrack is just so different and so unique, whether it's kind of the bend on the front straightaway, the different radius in turns 1 and 2 versus 3 and 4. There's really no other track like this out there, and that's why I love it so much. It's a driver's track. You get off of turn 2 and that wall's right there and you can't hit it. Everything about this racetrack, it's just what these drivers love to do, and with these street stocks, again, this should be a really, really fun show.
I've always argued that you can't cheat Rockingham. You have to have some skill in order to be successful here. As we take a look where we are in the world, if you go down US 1 and Highway 74, past Pinehurst, the golf capital of North Carolina, and you head as if you're headed towards Fayetteville and Myrtle Beach. Rockingham's not terribly far off the beaten path. A little bit of ways away, maybe about 2 hours from the Metro Charlotte area, but a staple in the Sand Hills of North Carolina that played host to the NASCAR Cup Series for the better part of 50 years. And it comes alive again today with the street stocks, which represent the final car that we will use in the round of 10. This is the final race in the round of 10. And as we enter this evening, Taylor Burris, it's Max Kennan and DJ Cummings that are outside of the cutoff, but only just. Ron Capps had technical troubles last week and is going to have to win in order to make a run into the round of 7. But you look at Cummings, Kennan, Stolnick, Alfredo, Pardis, and even Kyle Busch. You could rope those in. They're within 8 points of one another. And if Gabe Wood has an off night, you could throw in potentially 6 or 7 drivers into the mix fighting for 4 or 5 positions in that round of 7.
You certainly can. And talk about Anthony Alfredo briefly. One of the most dominant drivers during the playoffs this season had a bad race over at Dover where he did not have a good finish. And now look at him now, sitting just barely on that cutoff line to where he could possibly be eliminated here tonight. So have to keep an eye on the rest of the field. But Anthony Alfredo, as well as all the way down to Ron Capps, it's going to be interesting to see what they can accomplish tonight.
Alfredo was on a run to victory at Dover, just like he did in Saturday Night Thunder back in May of last year, and they got caught up in the wreck on the last lap on the back straightaway, which saw Ryan Vargas not only take the win, but take away the assured spot in the round of 7 that would have come with the victory had Alfredo been able to get it done. So it opens up the playing field a little bit more. Tonight we have a slightly different race format for this Big Green Egg 100. Drivers are completing their qualifying runs now. The top 28 drivers on time will lock themselves directly into the feature. Everybody else will go to the LCQ, which will run for 15 laps, and the top 5 drivers out of that race will advance into the 33 car feature that will run for 100 laps to close out this evening, Blake McCandless. So work to be done if you are buried in that LCQ. And just with the way these street stocks bunch together, you can't really get away from anybody. And this track race is a little bit more like a plate track for those cars. So I think you're going to be even more on pins and needles if you don't qualify top 28 than you would be if we were using, say the Xfinity car, the Cup car, where you really could make up a gap.
I think you're exactly right. This heat length isn't very long, and when you mentioned you're more wide open here in these street stocks than you would otherwise be in the other type of cars that we've seen run in the Monday Night Racing League. So you got to get it done early. If you're one of these drivers that has to make it through this heat, it's going to be a long climb to try to make it forward.
The good news, though, is that we have 33 people in the server exactly, so this ends up being practice for the folks at the back of the field, and a little bit of extra track time, and then a big name starting at the very back of this. Here's your starting grid for that first heat. It's Stephen Ellis, Steve Affont, Drew Welker, Mark Rabillas, and Shane Van Gisbergen, who only went out Taylor and I would say put a pretty good sized beat down on everybody in the Supercars Championship to open up their season at Mount Panorama. Won both races on Saturday and Sunday, so he's going for his third victory in the last 4 nights if he can get it done at Rockingham this evening.
He certainly is. Like, after that dominant performance at the season opener at Mount Panorama, he's looking to see you to come to the Rock and see if he can do well on ovals. Last week at the Monster Mile at Dover, he had a great performance for the most part, but got caught up in a couple of accidents towards the end of the race, taking him out of contention. So SVG knows a thing or two about getting around these ovals. Let's see what he can do, though, in a street stock.
He did not qualify and did not set a time, but he was the fastest in the practice session that opened up this evening for Monday Night Racing. So watch the 97 machine. Should be quick over the course of the evening. Time to take a look at our track facts for the first time this evening. Rockingham Speedway is a 1.017 mile, 1.636 kilometer circuit that opened up in 1965 in Rockingham, North Carolina, just off of US 1. Anywhere from 22 to 25 degrees of banking in the corners and 8 degrees of banking on the front stretch and the back stretch. This LCQ will go for 15 laps. The feature will go for 100. In sim, it is just about 4:30, and technically closer to 4:40 p.m. local time on the default day for iRacing, May 15th, 2021. Current air temperature is 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Track temp is 101 degrees Fahrenheit. Just starting to get up there with the asphalt temps. Winds headed to the north at 2 miles an hour. Humidity sitting at 56%. This is the last great warm-up for drivers who struggled to find pace in qualifying. The pace car will come off in this LCQ for the Big Green Egg 100s. Round 14 of Season 2 of Monday Night Racing is off and underway. Stephen Ellis in the Eric Beaudoin machine is going to lead the field into Turn 1. And Affont and Welker, everybody will follow in suit and get down to the bottom, I think, relatively quickly, Taylor.
They certainly will. The only car stuck up on the outside of the racetrack would have to be that second place car of Steve Affont, as they're going to go 3 wide almost down the front back straightaway here heading into turn 3, but it's going to be Stephen Ellis holding on to the race lead while we see Steve Affont hold that outside line.
I said they were going to go single file. Blake McCandless, I dropped my first commentator's curse of the evening because Steve Affont wants absolutely nothing to do with that bottom. But you see the trick here, and I think what Ellis is fighting is going to be what a lot of these drivers fight all night. You have to figure out how to drive these things off of the right rear. If you can map the power down in the right way, you can gain some time pretty quickly on people, but you also have to make sure you don't spin yourself out either.
I think you're exactly right, and that's what these drivers are trying to do, taking these first 15 laps. They're all going to advance through, so there's really nothing to do here but try to experiment. If you're this 11 car that's up here on the outside in Affont, why not try to see if you can make that high line work for you and try to, pitch those guys off a turn 2, try to make the racetrack narrow and see if that's going to be a preferred line right here. I think that's a great way for these guys to take advantage of kind of this free practice session that they have and see how this car behaves in traffic. We saw all these cars racing around each other in practice, but obviously when you get in a pack and you're carrying somewhat of the low speeds in these street stocks, you get to finally see how it behaves in traffic, and I'm sure that's what everybody's trying to do right now.
Fairly certain, though, is a Mr. Macy's helmet that I saw on Affont's machine. So I think that's the first time we can drop a Rick and Morty reference in iRacing on a Podium broadcast. But This is 2021. I guess we should learn after the events of the past year to expect the unexpected as Ellis continues to lead, but nearly drove up into the side of the 11 machine. Meanwhile, look at Shane Van Gisbergen. He's already cleared Rebellis and Drew Welker and is working over the rear bumper of the 46 for the race lead.
He certainly is. Tries to take a peek to the inside, to the middle of turns 3 and 4, off corner exit. Mark Rebellis watches on in that number 69. And here comes Drew Welker as well with a head of steam. Inside lane working quite well, but I gotta say, James, Steve Affont, that outside lane working quite well. He has yet go to the bottom of the racetrack.
And this is the trick here as Affont slides up high. Van Gisbergen got the run in the middle of the corner, and Ellis gets a bump from Affont. Will Van Gisbergen stick it down to the bottom? He will, with a little bit of help from Drew Welker, and you can move the 97 up to P1. Welker looks like he's going to go to second if he can clear Stephen Ellis into 1.
And I'll tell you what, don't let Drew Walker fool you right there. The one thing about these street stocks is the nose on the very center, the tip of the nose, it extends pretty far out. So it's a common mistake, especially for a lot of drivers, even like myself, who just don't run these street stocks very often. Sometimes you kind of underestimate how long that nose extends out. And Drew Welker, he nearly got to the inside there of SVG off of the corner, but was able to get back in line. And now again, we still see this side-by-side battle. Stephen Ellis trying to make the outside work.
Welker running, I believe, the 1994 version of the famed Rainbow Warriors paint scheme that Jeff Gordon ran, as you right on board with Shane Van Gisbergen. But the 94 machine for 2 reasons, Taylor Burris. One, you've got the Valvoline logo on the rear quarter panel. It was before the Quaker State deal came in. But 2, maybe more obviously, there was a time where Jeff Gordon's car actually carried the Coca-Cola logo on it. We know him now as a Pepsi driver, but that deal didn't kick in until about 1995, 1996. So back in 94, when he was busy winning at Charlotte and the Coke 600 and the Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis, it was Coke that was on the rear of his machine.
He certainly was part of the Coca-Cola racing family, along with Dale Sr. back in those early 90s. But, of course, great performance right now that Drew Welker is putting on with that themed of Jeff Gordon's 1994 Cup car back then, as he's now moved up to the second spot. Meanwhile, the battle for third between Stephen Ellis and Steve Affont. They're still continuing, but the problem is they're now battling it for the third position, as looks like Ellis is trying to drive a street stock Porsche, I would say, James Pike.
He's thinking about next week when we go to Montreal and the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve with the 911 RSRs to kick off the round of 7, I would say. At least that's my guess. But also a little bit closer to home for him. He, the Canadian, one of a handful of them that have competed in Monday Night Racing events throughout the first 2 seasons. So maybe a little bit more his wheelhouse than this oval thing, quote unquote. But Shane Van Gisbergen just driving away from the front as these two continue to battle. Van Gisbergen clear by 1.7 seconds over Drew Welker in third, who himself has about maybe 4 or 5 car lengths on the battle between the Steves, Ellis and Affont, for third and fourth.
And you'll be able to see right here how much counter steer is in that wheel, steering all the way to the right. That's how he is able to not only just get ahead of these guys, but completely drive away. As you see, Ellis gets loose there off the corner on the bottom side. Here comes the 11 to the outside. But right now, that's why the 97 is going to be so strong in this race. He is able to get that rotation through the corner. Meanwhile, everybody else is getting tight. Their tires are overheating, and SVG to the better tune of about 2 or 3 tenths over the rest of the field. As you see, contact here. Steve Affont goes up the racetrack. He'll try and save it.
That's the first tip check, although Affont, I think, tried to drive into him a little bit. But first tip check we've seen this evening, I am highly suspicious that that will be the last. I think we'll probably have a few more in there as we ride on board with, I believe that is indeed Affont, who is trying to gather it back up and go after Ellis. Meanwhile, Van Gisbergen will come off with 3 and 4 and see the white flag in this LCQ, trying to lock down the 29th starting position in this race.
What a drive. Started dead last in his heat race, is now going to come home with the heat race win if he's able to make it out of this rest of the field here as he comes off turn 2 for the final time down the back straightaway before getting back into the race car and going at it again for 100 laps, James.
based off of the speed he's shown, I won't rule out the front-to-back challenge, especially because you can see some calamity with these street stocks. But that's a question we'll have answered in the feature race in just a little bit. Shane Van Gisbergen, though, your winner in the LCQ, ahead of Welker, Ellis, Afon, and Rabillas. They all spin sideways and bounce off the fence at the very end of this, but it was SVG, then Welker, then Ellis, then Afon, then Rabillas. So those 5 get a little bit of extra practice time, and we now turn our attention to the starting grid for the feature race. It's time to take a look at our Bryant Shock Technologies Pole Award winner, which tonight goes to the spotter and the man at least 50% behind the replacements iRacing series that ran back in March and April of last year. TJ Majors wins tonight's BSG Pole Award with the fast time in qualifying, and Majors will start on the front row and lead us to the green flag. To his outside, a name that is, I would think, familiar to most people watching tonight's broadcast. Kyle Busch in the 51 machine will roll off from P2. David Schildhouse in the inside of the second row, and then DJ Cummings, Ford, Martin, some M&R mainstays making up some of the top spots of the grid. Taylor.
We go a little further down into the 7th position. We will see Brandon Brown and Preston Pardus, NASCAR Xfinity Series driver, starting in row number 4. A couple other drivers who are looking forward to work starting off their season here tonight in the 11th position. Ryan Vargas.
Nick Sanchez, Dylan Welch in there. You've got some ARCA stars in there. Ruben Garcia's got ARCA experience. And Gabe Wood, who's our Bryant Shock Technologies in-race reporter, Blake McCandless. He should be a lot of fun, I think, to listen to tonight.
Well, I'm just interested to see exactly where they're starting in the middle of the field. If you're starting back here in about row 8, row 9, even through rows 10 through 12, how you're going to navigate traffic. I don't think we got a great sense of it in that heat with, again, only 5 drivers out of the racetrack. Now you throw over 30 out there, 33 cars. It is going to be something that everybody that just came through that heat, they may have to take a lot of what they learned and throw it out the window, because now you're racing with the big boys. Everybody out here is fast. There's a reason they skipped that LCQ. So we'll see how these guys handle the challenge out here now that the entire track is full of street stocks.
Should be entertaining no matter what happens. As lights are off on the pace car refresher here tonight, this feature will go for 101.7 miles, 163.6 kilometers, and we're about to get underway. TJ Majors leads us to the green flag, and the big green 100 for Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring is underway at the Rock. And Majors got a good jump, and Kyle Busch there racing alongside Max Kennan, who is right on the edge of playoff contention. I wonder, Taylor Burris, if we may see Busch try and help to get that 21, the mechanic at Kyle Busch Motorsports, into the round of 7. That might be some team games between those two tonight.
Possibly will be, as we see Max Kennan pick up to the 2nd position right now and gaining ground on TJ Majors as they come around the start-finish line, complete lap number 1. Meanwhile, in the 4th position, you'll see David Schildhouse going head-to-head with DJ Cummings and Ford Martin, as well as those 3 cars are trying to work their way up to the top 3.
Yellow flag out, though. I believe maybe an incident a little bit further back, and indeed, I believe that's Ron Capps who ends up in trouble. He's a little bit stuck over in turns 1 and 2. You see the 28 NAPA Auto Parts machine stuck on the fence. We'll take a look at the replay, see what happened, Blake, but I suspect it's just hard racing that you see here at Rockingham, and a bit of contact entering turn 1. Yeah, looks like Capps was trying to almost arc it into the middle of the corner, didn't realize that Garrett Miller was still alongside him, makes contact with a 36, and Capps ends up getting the worst of it and goes for a Carl Long-esque ride down the banking in turn 2.
It was going to be a long night for Ron Capps regardless, but this isn't going to help matters, as it looked like Garrett Miller there, middle 3 wide. And yeah, you see the ending result, just barrel rolling down the banking in turns 1 and 2. That is such a hard impact there for Capps. It's going to be a long way to come back. Going to have to take the toe to pit road. And yeah, there you see it. I don't know necessarily if Capps came down or if Miller kind of got a little tight there on corner entry, but regardless, it goes really poor for Ron Capps. These cars can take quite a punch, but unfortunately, barrel rolling and sitting upside down, you're going to need the tow truck, and Capps already with a ton of damage and losing a lot of time on what it needed to be a very big night for him.
Blake, I'll come back to you as the one with the experience here at Rockingham, because I think when you look at corner entry at Rockingham, there are two pieces that every driver should be aware of. The first is that, and especially over in the entry to 1, maybe not so much in 3, but especially over in 1, you've got about 2 or 3 different lanes that you can take through the corner, and 2 or 3 different entry points that can cross over one another if you're racing door to door with somebody. So I think you have to be mindful of that, A, and then B, and something that I think we'll see as this race progresses and as the tires get a little bit older, these cars can slide at the racetrack, and even though you can try and aim for the apron and aim to stay right on that yellow line, cars at Rockingham tend to slide up in the center of the corner more so than normal, and you can push it and try and intentionally leave somebody enough room to race on the outside, but just incorrectly judge that corner entry and slide yourself up into them in the center of the corner and get yourself in trouble that way. I think the big question is which drivers have those two pieces figured out early on so that they can pass people and not run into people on their way to the front.
Well, again, I think that's why you see a lot of experience over here at the front of the field. You talk about TJ Majors. He knows what he's doing. Kyle Busch, David Schildhaus, a longtime veteran of sim racing. The drivers that understand, especially what you talked about, multiple entry points. How do you fight a guy pinching you on the outside, and where are you going to enter turn 1? There's so many lifting points here. I know, depending on the car you're driving, you're lifting at the rock sign or the start-finish line in some cars going into turn 1 nearly. So that's why I love this racetrack so much, that depending on the line you're running, it controls where you lift, how you manage to race a car on your outside. There's just so many options here at Rockingham. That's why I love it, and why these drivers have a lot at their disposal.
Did we mention that this is one of the bumpiest ovals in iRacing as well? I don't even think we touched on that in the broadcast tonight, but that's also part of this too. It's the rock for a reason. It's a rocky road to victory lane in the Big Green Egg 100, no matter how you try and tackle this place. As we go back to green flag racing, good move there for Kyle Busch to get clear of Max Kennan. David Schildhaus hanging out in the 5th spot, just waiting for his moment as DJ Cummings sits in and tucks in behind the 21 machine as they enter 3 and 4.
Here they come off of turn number 4 down the front straightaway. The battle for the race lead between Kyle Busch and TJ Majors will go on into turn 1. So far, single file right now as they work through the middle of turns 1 and 2. Both of them all hugging that inside yellow line as they come off turn 2 down the back straightaway.
Absolute mess just a little bit further back. The first 5 are single file. You go back to Brandon Brown and Nick Sanchez, though. They're double file for 6th and 7th as Ryan Vargas pokes his nose underneath the 12 machine. Here comes Sanchez to the bottom. We'll see if Ford Martin decides to make a move from the inside as well. He's got a few drivers trying to fight for his spot in the top 10.
And the one thing that we're seeing here on the front straightaway is with these street stocks, they don't get up to speed that well, but they carry a lot through these corners. And with that, you see a lot of drivers cutting the front straightaway, getting all the way down there to the apron, trying to cut some time out. We know we saw it in qualifying, and you can see, look how low they're running on the racetrack right there, all the way to the bottom. You're not going to see that at a lot of higher power stock cars that run here, but the street stocks just slow enough on the straightaways, but fast enough in the corners that you can end up running down there and using that kind of as a way to gain some time, and you're still able to make the entry to turn 1.
It's so intriguing that these drivers will go all the way down to the bottom, and yet they'll just sort of swing up only to make sure they can properly arc into turn 1, Taylor Burris. You don't really have to worry about running the wall the whole way around to maintain your lap time.
No, you certainly don't have to compare to some of the more higher horsepower stock cars that we see on the iRacing service. They pretty much are running towards the inside. These are pretty much bottom feeders race cars here at Rockingham, as we see them staying to the inside lane off turn number 4 with our top 4 currently pulling away from the field. But that's pretty much it with these cars. I mean, this is just old school racing that we see on any local short track.
It does feel a little bit like overgrown short track racing. Maybe not a surprise that the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour, one of the preeminent short track series in the country, will close out their season in October right here at the real life Rockingham Speedway. So definitely a connection there too. But as it stands, it's still Majors, Busch, Kennan, Cummings, Schildhaus in good shape. At the front of all of this, Vargas has done a nice job driving away from Brandon Brown. He's already caught up to David Schildhaus in 6th, and it's a trade up to that point, and then then you get back to Brandon Brown. You start seeing some of the battles here with Nick Sanchez, Ford Martin, Matt Stolnick, Preston Portis, and then Robbie Lyons and Dylan Welch, the reporter for MRN and NBC Sports, stuck up top trying to work his way around the Xfinity Series driver and Podium eSports' own Devin Henry, the voice of the MPI Cup Series on Sunday nights.
And I think what's amazing is you see one car down here on the bottom. They're going to go 3 wide into turn 1. I believe that's Anthony Alfredo, who's trying to cut his way through the field. Is the huge separation here. Oh, trouble here. They're 3 wide, and that does not work on the exit of turn 2. One car climbing the outside fence as they continue wrecking on down here. That is probably one of the tightest parts of the racetrack, is off the exit of turn 2, and it is a bad spot to end up 3 wide. Gabe Wood is involved in that. A couple other cars slam into the outside wall, but that's a really tough area of this racetrack, and you can see why it's such a difficult area right there. Gabe Wood, I believe the 14 of Dylan Welch, Devin Henry, they all get swept up in this one.
It was Welch and Henry that made the initial contact. We'll show you the replay in a moment, but those two, I think, were the first two to really get together, although there may have been a little bit of help from Gabe Wood, and indeed there was. Well, actually, it was Wood who made contact with Welch, and Henry was stuck on the outside, but Wood just got stuck on the apron. So you'll see them bunched together as they go into turn 1 here. They'll stack it up, contact between Alfredo and Henry sort of bottlenecks things up. Then that forces Wood down to the apron. He runs into Welch as he tries to gather his car back up, and then Welch spins, bounces into Devin Henry, and then they all start going around at that point. And by the end of this, you've got about 4 or 5 cars involved. I don't think anybody's going to need to use the fast repair, Taylor Burris, but certainly not the greatest of problems to have if you're Henry. I guess if you're the 95 car, you're thankful that you were able to get back on all 4 wheels, given that he was about 3/4 to being flipped over going through Thunder Alley that time by.
He certainly was. A little bit crinkled up on the hood as well as the roof of that number 95 street stock as we watch him go up on 2 wheels and landing back down here. Dylan Welch, of course, going for a wild ride, but looks safe to say that they will not have anything major that they have to come down pit road to utilize that fast repair this time around. Now, granted, later on down the road, it might be a good idea to come down pit road and utilize that fast repair.
Right now, they're all having a major challenge trying to catch TJ Majors, your race leader, after 15 laps. We'll take a quick break and then be back with more action with the Big Green Egg 100 from Rockingham Speedway on Podium eSports.
There's a place where fire and flavor are celebrated, where grilling traditions and new techniques are perfected. Here in Big Green Egg Country, you can grill it, roast it, smoke it, or bake it. It's the most versatile grill you'll ever own. Simple delight, easy to use, comes with a free lifetime warranty. Have it delivered to your door by a certified dealer in your community and start enjoying the ultimate cooking experience. Shop online for home delivery at BigGreenEgg.com. That's BigGreenEgg.com.
Welcome back to Podium eSports coverage of the Big Green Egg 100, race number 2, the final race in the round of 7 for the playoffs of Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring Season 2. Time to bring in our Bryant Shot Technology Sid Race reporter for the first time, Gabe Wood, who was involved in that incident. Gabe, it looked crazy right around where you were in the field. What happened from your perspective?
Well, I mean, I took advantage of a hole that was there. Alfredo took it to the inside of Dylan Welch, and I went to fill that hole, and the 14 came down. But at the same time, somebody hit in front of them, and I went to the bottom to try and miss it. And I wish guys would, I know I'm on the bottom and kind of straddling the apron, but I wish guys would, have a little bit of common sense that somebody's down there. I mean, got a lot of tore up race cars in the back because of it, but I don't think I got too much damage out of it. I didn't even have to use a fast repair.
And quickly, before we go back to green, you do a lot of work with JD Motorsports with Gary Keller. Tell the folks specifically about what your 9 to 5 role is and weekend role is too.
Well, we'll call it more about a 7 to 6:30 role, but I'm a tire specialist, and then I'm pretty much the underneath guy for the zero car when we're back at the shop. But I also handle pretty much everything, fuel cells, everything except interior.
Everything except the red piece on those red machines. Gabe, wish you the best of luck in the rest of this race. We'll come back to you in a little bit.
Yes.
It's Gabe Wood from JD Motorsports, tonight's Bryant Shock Technology in-race reporter. He'll restart in the 24th position as we get set to go back to green flag action on lap 18 of 100. It's TJ Majors and Kyle Busch that will lead us to the green flag, and good restarts for everybody in that top three. Cummings trying to work his way around Busch, who gets spun and punted into the fence, and they spread out and wreck at the front of the field. Yellow flag out immediately, and that almost looked like Kyle Busch just missed his shift. Blake McCandless, I can't think of any other reasonable explanation as to why that car just came to a dead stop entering turn one the way it did, but about 7 or 8 cars involved in that incident.
And that is what we're hearing and confirmed. It looks like, Kyle, again, this is one of those cars on iRacing. You think about all the vehicles that we've been running in the stock cars, the truck, the Xfinity car, the Cup car. Everything has a clutchless transmission, or you can shift the gears without having to hit the clutch. This street stock, not the case. You have to push that clutch pedal to get that shifting done. And again, it is so hard, especially when you're the second car in line to get to the bottom. We've seen both the 21 not be able to do it to Max Kinnon and Kyle Busch. Whoever's in second usually falls back to third. I'm sure that's just one of those just silly mistakes that Kyle made, just trying to shift the gears, and unfortunately just missed one of them. And when everybody else is going behind you, that's one thing these street stocks don't do well. They do not come to a stop very well, and everybody piles in.
It's a tough break for DJ Cummings, who had absolutely nowhere to go. Ryan Vargas got a pretty good piece of that. Devin Henry for the second wreck, and as many yellow flags caught up and a part of this incident. Same to be said for Will Rogers in the 55 car. He got caught up in this. Shane Van Gisbergen got some damage. Looks like the 15 machine of Kobe Moore was involved in this as well. Mr. Welker gets swept up in this too. Just a lot of cars with a lot of trouble over the course of that incident, Taylor Burris.
And speaking of DJ Cummings, remember, he's on that cutoff area. He's 2 points outside the top 7, so this is a big big implication for him to see if he can survive. Granted, he has a fast repair, but since he's possibly having to use that early due to the fact of the damage he received, it could cost him down the road, so we'll have to see what happens.
Working lap 20 of 100 in this Big Green Egg 100. You take a look at the live point standings there on the right side of your screen, and I don't think we need to tell you much. I think the triple zeros there between Alfredo, the 41, and the 21 of Max Kinnon say everything you need to know about how tight this battle is going to be for the last playoff spot.
It's going to be
Tough, tight, tense, wild, crazy. Take your pick of words.
Yeah, pretty much all of that put together.
All of it? Fair enough.
Probably a Tufco.
A Tufco one? Or we're at that point, are we?
We are at that point.
Okay, all right. Well, if you're going to go there, then I'll go here and remind everybody that tonight's broadcast of Monday Night Racing is brought to you by Tufco Flooring. Tufco Flooring is an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and trays. Tufco doesn't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach, and neither should you. Tufco listens to your needs and requirements and develops custom solutions for every client. For more information, visit their website at tufcoflooring.com. So, now that I have been appropriately baited into reads, thank you, Taylor Burris, for that one. With the new group at the front, and some new names beginning to cycle up here. Nick Sanchez in particular, and Anthony Alfredo too. Those two have climbed 9 and 11 spots respectively since the drop of the green flag. So do we need to keep a close eye on the 96 to the 38, TB?
I would say yes. Nick Sanchez definitely is one of those. Always very fast, but the problem is he's got to try to see if he can keep the car clean. Otherwise, he might be having some issues for him. So we'll have to see what he can do. Brandon Brown, also another one of those contenders who has a very strong run in the street stocks. The last time we took him out over at Phoenix. So keep an eye on him to see what he can do here at Rockingham Speedway. And then, of course, one of the biggest movers before that caution, Shane Van Gisbergen, started, like we said, outside the top 25. He was then running inside the top 20 before that caution in pit stops.
Van Gisbergen with the nose damage, but hearing that a lot of drivers are electing to not use their fast repairs and that they might save them for a little bit, save for Ron Capps, who just about had no choice, but even Devin Henry is going to try and hang on to his fast repairs and make sure that he's got some breathing space at the end of this. Green flag back out in the air. Majors and Kinnan leading us back to green, and it doesn't look like we have any shifting issues amongst the front few drivers this time around. So it will be all about Majors and company as they go through 1 and 2. David Schildhouse now up into second as Max Kinnan will slide back to third.
Up into second as there's a big block thrown by Max Kinnan. That's going to allow the top two to scurry on away as Max Kinnan again went to the bottom to block Sanchez. Here comes Sanchez with a big run. He's got a little bit of a push here from Brandon Brown here down the front straightaway. We know Sanchez, he's been awfully aggressive so far in Monday Night Racing this season. Thinks better of that as Kinnan got the run off the corner. But right now, top 4, call that top 5, all about single file and close battle of the racetrack right there. Brandon Brown, Preston Pardis, nose to tail.
That is a mess behind Brandon Brown and the 12 machine. Pardis is there. Oh, Ford Martin got sent up into the fence as one car goes flipping in the middle of 3 and 4. Yellow flag comes out again. We'll take a look at the replay, but I believe it was off-axis paints Greg Stump that ends up in trouble just at the exit of turn 4, TB.
As we take a look at the replay of this incident here, big issues for Greg Stump. It looks like a little bit of contact between him and Paul Sutton, as then Greg will go up and over here. Engine smoking, just absolute destruction. Going to have to get a tow and a fast repair probably if he wants to continue on in today's race.
He made some contact after he came down. I believe that was Michael Massey in the 27 machine who got a good chunk out of Stump's machine and sent him down to the bottom. But anytime you see that particular cloud of smoke coming out the front end of the car, canvas, pretty obvious indicator engine damage is part of the equation.
Engine damage is part of it, but I don't think it would matter too much because, again, whenever you end up upside down, you have to take that tow. You have to wait all that time for your car to get back to pit road. More than likely have that fast repair waiting for you, but it doesn't make up for the time that you lose while having to wait for it to get done. If anything, he's benefited that it happened off of turn 4 instead of in the middle of 1 and 2. It kind of takes that tow time and reduces it a little bit. But nevertheless, just a really hard impact there as Stump was trying to correct that car and just initially overreacted there to that correction. And that was just a violent impact there with the nose of that race car.
You save about 2 minutes, I would say, if you wreck over where he did compared to turn 1 where we saw our previous cautions. So that could be handy now. Of course, these drivers do have the opportunity to get multiple wave arounds with each passing caution flag. So he can certainly race his way back into contention, but he'll have to take his lone fast repair early. And that, I think, is probably the bigger part of the equation for the 78 machine, given that we are only a quarter of the way through proceedings this evening. Tonight's broadcast of Monday Night Racing is brought to you by Big Green Egg. With a Big Green Egg, versatility is the name of the game. You can grill, roast, smoke, bake, and sear on the all-in-one, simple-to-use Big Green Egg. From appetizers and entrees to desserts and pastries, the Big Green Egg will exceed all your expectations. And with 7 convenient sizes and a limited lifetime warranty, there's a Big Green Egg to fit any lifestyle. Don't forget to watch the number 9 Big Green Egg Ford Mustang for Jim Beaver eSports, driven by Brownsburg, Indiana's Michael Guest, and the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series on Tuesday nights. And you can listen to their Cooks and Cars podcast on Saturday mornings on Big Green Egg's social media channel. Race on over to BigGreenEgg.com for more information and find your nearest dealer today. And speaking of the Coke Series racing that happens on Tuesday night, how about we talk about some of the events that are coming up in the world of iRacing over the course of the next week, because we have the Coke Series back in action on Tuesday night. The eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series coming your way from Las Vegas Motor Speedway tomorrow night. Pre-race at 8:30, main show starting at 9 p.m. on iRacing social media channels. The Dirt Sprint Car Championship Series on Wednesday night from Eldora. You'll see that here on twitch.tv/Podium2 and Podium eSports Facebook and YouTube pages at 9 p.m. Eastern. Then, top split of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying Series comes back to Podium eSports. Las Vegas is where race number 1 will be. You'll see our broadcasts on the main Podium eSports Twitch channel at 9 p.m. Eastern. Then PCA Sim Racing returns for its 3rd year with the Zone Group Challenge, an all-new competition before we get to Series 6 later on this spring. But we'll start off at the venerable Watkins Glen International at 8 p.m. Eastern on PCA Sim Racing's YouTube channels. Then Sunday night, it's the MPI All-Star Race from Kansas, the MPI Cup Series coming your way 9:15 p.m. Eastern, March 7th on Twitch.tv/Podium eSports with all sorts of fun. That I think should be very entertaining, just with the way that high groove works at Kansas in the sim. Ends up making for a lot of entertaining racing over the course of the night. All TJ Majors, though, as we get set to go green flag racing once again in the Big Green Egg 100. Majors takes off, and everybody looks like they hit their shifts going up through the gears into turn one. Shieldhouse to the outside of Max Kinnon, and Nick Sanchez up into fourth. It's the highest he's run all night, looking for third underneath Shieldhouse down the backstreet.
Working their way down Thunder Alley here, you'll see Preston Pardis watches on for the battle for the race lead between the top four of Majors, Kennan, Sanchez. David Shieldhouse, though, gets a little bit loose off turn four. That's going to allow Preston Pardis to move into that fourth spot as they come down the front straightaway here. A great job for Preston Pardis, who won earlier this year at Michigan in the super late models.
He's got a victory. Nick Sanchez was the last man to go to victory in the street stocks at the legacy version of Phoenix International Raceway with the old dog leg and the worn pavement and all. So looking to sweep the street stock races in season 2 rather of Monday Night Racing. He pinches Pardis though all the way down through the yellow line. No room whatsoever before they arc out just a little bit to make sure they make it through 1 and 2 okay.
You can see right out the front windshield there how low that 21 is running. That is how Nick Sanchez, you can barely see that car to the left, but you can see he's going to try to get right in there, and oh, there wasn't room. Sanchez into the outside wall. I was just about to talk about. He tried to get down there as you saw him lift for Preston Pardis, but there was a car waiting in his wake, and he's going to lose a ton of spots here. Gets a little bit of damage out of that, but is able to save it, and no, he's going to put the 46 on the apron there.
Lots of work there for Nick Sanchez to do. He's got some track position to go climb up to now. He was up in third. He's all the way back in 16th. And David Shieldhouse was there. I think if you're the 20 car, I have a feeling that's probably what David said on his stream, is that I'm there. I'm not just going to give up the space just because he tries to come down on top of me. I'm going to hold my ground. Shieldhouse did, and he maintains that P4 spot for the moment. But he's got to fight off Brandon Brown in the 12 machine.
He certainly does, as Brandon Brown with a head of steam to the inside as they go down Thunder Alley into turns 3 and 4. Side by side, Brown on the bottom, Shieldhouse on the top side of the racetrack, and Brandon Brown will overtake and move into that fourth position. Anthony Alfredo watches on, looking to see if he can get a good night here in the point standings in order to advance to the round of 7.
Yellow flag is out once again, and it is trouble, and big trouble for one of our playoff contenders. Ron Capps is upside down once again in turn 3, and that, I think, probably spells the bitter end of his attempt to make the round of 7. Got caught up at the very end and almost was okay, but got tagged right at the end by Mark Rubilis and sent him up into the fence and over. So not too much damage on the body of the 28 machine, and these street stocks can take a beating for the most part, but they'll have to come down and use the toe. I think that's the bigger issue at this stage, is all that time you're going to lose and the fact that you're going to need a few more yellows just to get back up to the front with a few wave rounds, Blake.
And you know what? I hate this from Mark Rubilis. You see the contact right there. He is well aware of this, checks up. He's well behind the wreck. He does exactly what you're kind of taught to do when these wrecks occur. You see smoke, you back her down, you go all the way down to the inside. It's just you don't anticipate that car you see spinning right there. He gets it wound up, slow down, all the way to the inside wall, and just at the wrong place at the wrong time. Rubilis did nothing wrong there. About 99% of the time you make that move, you're going to get out of that wreck okay. It's just this was the one time that Capps just, unfortunately, as a result of the spin, just ended up working down the racetrack, and that's tough for not only Rubilis there, but obviously it puts Capps on his lid once again, and that's pretty much going to put an end to his bid to try to get back in this playoff fight into the round of 7.
It comes back to the self-cleaning principle, Taylor. That to me is what stands out about that wreck. It's that all drivers are taught what goes up eventually does come down, and even though Capps was spinning to the outside initially, eventually the banking sent him back down the racetrack, and that's part of the game you play and the gamble that you take when you're trying to avoid an incident like Blake just talked about.
It certainly is, and we just saw that happening. Like we saw last week at Dover, Rockingham is also one of those self-cleaning racetrack, especially through the middle of the corners of turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, as we just saw. So we'll have to keep an eye and see who else can survive if another incident like that were to occur later on here today.
Probably not done with our yellow flags either. Working lap 36 of 100 in tonight's Big Green Egg 100 from Monday Night Racing at Rockingham Speedway. We'll take a quick break and be back with more action from the Rock on Podium eSports.
We are an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and drains. We don't believe in the one-size-fits-all approach to flooring, and neither should you. When you choose Tufco, we consult with you about your needs, industry requirements, and factor in numerous variables. After assessing your facility, we engineer your floor and drains, then install everything ourselves. That's the Tufco way.
Visit our website at tufcoflooring.com.
Welcome back to Podium eSports coverage of Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring. It's the Big Green Egg 100 at Rockingham Speedway. James Pike, Taylor Burris, Blake McCandless, and our producer Ryan Bauer bringing you all the action from the Rock in southeastern North Carolina, working your way towards the beach, but not quite there. Just a lot of sand, a lot of dunes that were underwater once upon a time about, maybe 1 million, 2 million, many million years ago. If you can believe it, where the Rock is in the state actually was underwater. But as the waters receded, we have ice ages, and, the Earth obviously changed over that long extended period of time. You end up with the sand hills that this region of North Carolina is famous for, and the sand hills that create those famous dunes that make the golfing at Pinehurst so wonderful. Pinehurst, not terribly far away, maybe about 30 or 45 minutes to the west of Rockingham. So not often that you see race car drivers combine racing and golfing, but this would be one of the few places where it's not necessarily a bad combo, because you've got some of the best golf courses in the country not terribly far off. But we'll see who swings for the fences and swings for victory lane over the course of the next 60 laps or so. It's Max Kennan who got the lead from TJ Majors right before that last yellow flag came out, and Kennan who will lead us to green flag racing on lap 39 of 100. Majors, Preston Pardus, Brandon Brown, David Schildhouse, the rest of your top 5 coming back to green flag racing. Kennan stands on the gas, and I think he'll take this if he can maintain this track position, Taylor Burris, because fighting on the edge of the playoff picture, victory would do him a little bit of good, I think.
It certainly would. With this victory, that would guarantee him a spot into the round of 7 here as they work down the back straightaway heading into turn 3. But TJ Major's going to have something to say about this, as he will go to the inside of Max Kennan. They'll go side by side, but TJ Majors will clear him. Kennan tries to crossover, but ends up getting into the back bumper of TJ Majors down the front straightaway heading into turns 1. Pardus and Schildhouse look on.
That was incredibly tight from Max Kennan to get down to the bottom just in time to make sure that Preston Pardus couldn't fill the gap in between the 22 and the 21. So tough work there, but Kennan is able to get in front of the 90 machine, maintain P2, and hold on at least for the moment. But it doesn't seem like that car is sticking to that inside lane as well as some of the other ones around him, Blake McCandless. Pardus looks like he's getting through corner exit better, as does Schildhouse, as does Brandon Brown, and even Ruben Garcia just a little bit further back too.
That's exactly right, and of course you want that car to work on the bottom of the racetrack. You see Garcia going to have the nose chopped off. He's going to give a little bump to the 12 car, and that's going to send Garcia hard in the wall. Does he come back through traffic? He does, but somehow doesn't tag anyone. That's going to be heavy damage there for Garcia, but that's kind of what we're seeing here with these street stocks. They run so much around the bottom. You have these big checkups, and unfortunately just not able to slow down in time. There was Garcia as he got flung to the outside wall.
Garcia with heavy damage to both the left front and the right front suspension. We'll see whether or not he decides to take his fast repair early. Meanwhile, Max Kennan got loose in the middle of 3 and 4, and Preston Pardus is trying to get down to the bottom to take over that second position from the 21. He will, and David Schildhouse may well come underneath Kennan to try and get third away.
He certainly is, as they work their way in the middle of the back straightaway here. Pardus holds on to second. Schildhouse dives to the inside of Max Kennan for that third position. Will complete the pass off turn number 4 as they come down the front straightaway now. Schildhouse looking for more as he tries to set his sights on Preston Pardus.
So Majors, Pardus, Schildhouse, Kennan away from everybody else. You go back a second, and then you get to Anthony Alfredo, who's had the drive of the night so far. And I think for Alfredo, there's a little bit of redemption on the line here after having arguably the best car in the entire field last Monday night at Dover. Couldn't get the victory. Would have made his life a lot easier tonight, but when it comes to earning the playoff points and getting himself into the round of 7, this will count. This will do if this holds when we get to lap 100.
No doubt about it. Anthony with a chip on his shoulder after, like you said, what didn't just have the fastest car, was the best driver at Dover last week. Just had strategy, other unforeseen circumstances get in his way. That's racing. So take a look here, the 12 trying to dive to the inside. That's Brandon Brown looking underneath Ford Martin there for position number 8. But back to Alfredo, no doubt about it. He was so fast at Dover, and he has worked his way through the field as there is a huge wreck here on the front straightaway. My goodness, cars taking flight. One car just continuing to barrel roll here. The 23 is up and over. That was a monstrous wreck here at the Rock. My goodness.
That started small and then got very big very quickly out of turn 4. I believe it was Steven Ellis that was the first one I saw go around, but there were a lot more drivers that got caught up in that. We'll take a look at the replay here, but Ellis, and it looks like Robbie Lyons make contact over in 3 and 4. We'll have to wait here to see how this unfolds, but they were racing pretty close over the course of those last few laps or so. So you'll see Lyons get a good run down the back straightaway to try and get to Ellis, and then they'll come into 3 and 4, and Ellis runs a little bit wide through the center of the corner, which allows Lyons to get to his rear bumper, and then it's on from there. Those two eventually become uncoupled, and Gabe Wood gets caught up again, and there was a huge launch for Ellis. But how about Drew Welker in the 64? Taylor Burris, that's automatic entry into the Podium eSports Space Administration, no question. We haven't had a new member of that group in a while.
We haven't had one in quite some time, and Drew, welcome to the team, as you are now joining the Podium eSports Space Administration after that liftoff that we'll see as we take a look at the replay of Drew Welker. As he comes down, he'll make contact with that one car off turn 4, and liftoff we have, with a quick send back to planet Earth here at the Rock.
Well, North Carolina is the state known as being first in flight. Ohio likes to claim the birth of the Wright brothers, but it is in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, they actually flew their famous plane. So maybe not a surprise when you consider that we have someone take flight in this state. And put on a pretty good show there, too. That's ride of the season, I would say. I can't think of too many wrecks in Monday Night Racing that have been bigger than the one that Drew Welker just had a few moments ago. As they run under yellow flag, we'll see if we can bring in Gabe Wood once again, just because he got caught up in the incident again. But yeah, that was a big launch that Welker had. And Gabe, do we need to send you a golden horseshoe of some form as we bring in our Bryant Shock Technologies in Race Reporter? But do you need a golden horseshoe or a rabbit's foot, or do we need to send a black cat under somebody else's ladder or something to that effect?
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty stupid back there. I mean, all the incidents I've really been in, they've been unavoidable. I mean, these guys get spun out and they get spun back up the racetrack. It's nothing I can really do and nothing anybody else can do. But yeah, it seems like I'm always on the receiving end of some sort of damage of that. So kind of sucks. I was lucky to get off both those first incidences without any damage, but now I'm without my fast repair. So that's going to kind of suck for the rest of the night. Yeah.
So now that you're down the fast repair, you're going to try and just wait it out in the back and maybe make your charge late to try and preserve the car? Or do you have to go for it knowing that, you get stuck in the back and there's not really much of a way to avoid all these incidents?
Honestly, I've been wrecked in the front, I've been wrecked in the back, so I may as well drive to the front and see what happens.
Yeah, fair enough. I can't argue that. But
I will point out one thing, though. My crew chief he made fun of me because I misspoke and said that I do everything except interiors. I help and do everything but interiors. He wanted to put me back down a peg.
So you clean the bathrooms on the SS Gourmet, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. That checks out. So we'll let you get down pit road, get that car fixed up before we go green flag racing, and we'll chat with you a little bit later, Gabe.
All right, thanks, guys.
It's Gabe Wood from City Motorsports with Gary Keller in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Tonight's Bryant Shock Technology in Race Reporter. We are at the halfway point Now, when they cross the line, we will officially be cross flags in this Big Green Egg 100, but we'll hold out for a few laps just to see if anything happens before we bring you tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. Also of note, everybody in the top 10 has yet to come down pit road for service. Everybody 11th or further back has pitted in some way, shape, or form. It might be another nugget to keep track of as this race progresses. But TJ Majors gets us back to green flag racing. Preston Pardis in the mix. David Schildhouse with a nice run to third. So Ken in there to the bottom. Alfredo clears, and I guess our first proper battle, Blake McCann. Let's go back to Matt Stolnick and Ford Martin fighting for 7th.
As the first side-by-side battle right here. It's again tight confines. Got slow traffic over there. Welker, nice that he was able to recover from taking flight here on the front straightaway. Stolnick able to get the best of that battle. They're still duking it out back there. Sanchez and Ford Martin now right on the outside door of the top 10. Sanchez trying to make his way in.
Sanchez has easily become one of the most aggressive drivers in Monday Night Racing, and it's part of the reason why he was able to earn a playoff berth this season. But it also makes you wonder, especially with the pinching incident with David Schildhouse, if you don't make that move at that point, do you have a clean race car now that you can, at least just sort of wait around with? I have a hunch that there is a time to go and that we haven't quite yet hit that time to hit the big red button and make the push towards the front proper. So Taylor Burris, have you noticed anything? Do you think there's some credence to that down that front?
There certainly is, and that's going to be one of the things that they're going to have to keep an eye on throughout the duration of this race. We just went over the halfway point here a little bit ago, so it's very critical for these drivers to take care of their equipment and see if they can do that. Now, as we have the caution out now, that's one of the keys that a lot of these front runners are showing in order to make it a good show for them.
Justin Malillo and Kyle Busch involved. You see it on your screen. The driver from technically Port Jefferson Station, New York, colliding with the driver from Las Vegas, Nevada. Daniel Day. You get one of the cookie jar, I guess. But we'll take a look what happened over in 3 and 4. Malillo runs the high line. Busch runs the low line. And Busch just got loose on corner exit and caught the 53.
And unfortunately, Kyle Busch is fine here, but as soon as he gets into the grass kind of grabs the side of that car, just rolls it over. You'll see right here, Busch you can see, gets a little loose, comes up, nothing for Malillo to do. But as soon as Kyle Busch gets in the grass, that Rowdy Energy Toyota does not enjoy it. And unfortunately, that's where he's going to get a majority of his damage.
So KB with more damage. And as we carry on, it's time to bring you through the field in tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break, which as always is brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the world of outlaws, and more. TJ Majors, your race leader here in the Big Green Egg 100 at Rockingham Speedway. Preston Pardis runs second. Third is where you'll find David Schildhouse. Max Kidden holds the 4th spot. 5th belongs to the 38 of Anthony Alfredo. Nick DeGroot rides in the 6th spot. 7th belongs to Matt Stolnick. Nick Sanchez currently sits in 8th. 9th belongs to Brandon Brown. And Will Rogers from Space Station Gaming runs in 10th, TB.
Ford Martin sits in the 11th position, followed by Devin Henry in 12th. Shane Van Gisbergen sits in the 13th position, followed by Steve Affont in 14th. Greg Stump sits in the 15th position, followed by Ryan Vargas 16th. 17th goes to Jason Keffer, with Michael Massey's 18th. Rounding out your top 20 is Kobe Moore and Brett Baldet.
Mark Rabillas runs in 21st. 22nd is DJ Cummings. Garrett Miller is scored in 23rd. Paul Sutton 24th. Kyle Busch runs in 25th. He's currently sitting down on pit road. So is Justin Malillo in 26th. Ron Capps is back on the lead lap. He runs 27th. Dylan Welch is 28th. Ruben Garcia 29th. Gabe Wood, the final car on the lead lap, is 30th. Stephen Ellis 31st. Robbie Lyons 2 laps down in 32nd. And Drew Welker also 2 laps down, scored in 33rd.
And that concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. There were 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser-scanned tracks and cars to choose from. iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. We talk about new cars, new tracks as much as we can anytime we get the chance to it. And one that I think will pertain to Rockingham and in particular to the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour that we mentioned a little bit earlier. We've got a brand new super late model coming to iRacing in the near future. A few weeks ago, iRacing shared their 3D model of the new scan with the new Gen 6 body on it. And TB, that I think is going to be a lot of fun. And I think a lot of people short sell the fun that you can have in an SLM, but that's a car that definitely could use an update. It's one of the oldest cars on the sim as it stands, dates all the way back to the mid-2000s when they got their first crop of cars scanned, which included the very street stock you see here. So to get a little bit new technology in that car should be a lot of fun, I think.
It certainly is, and letting it be one of the stepping stones of oval racing in the world of motorsports, a super late model is very much so a much needed update that they needed to have. With a constant change of the world of super late model racing, this is something that pretty much a lot of fans are looking forward to seeing. And how many super late model series and leagues do we see here on the iRacing service that happen? And of course, we just had the super late models ran at Michigan, not just for Monday Night Racing, but also back on FS1 during the COVID outbreak.
Wednesday night iRacing, which took some inspiration from the Pro Invitational Series, and then the Pro Invitational Series took some inspiration from Wednesday night iRacing, because we're going to have some Wednesday night iRacing on Fox Sports 1 with the Pro Invitational Series for 2021 as well, starting up at the end of the month. So be sure to tune in to Fox Sports 1 to see all of that action when it comes your way. Restart here on lap 59 of this Big Green Egg 100 for Monday Night Racing at Rockingham Speedway. Majors gets a good jump ahead of Pardis. Schildhouse in the mix too. Kenneth working to the outside. Alfredo down on the bottom. Anthony Alfredo with one of the strongest runs so far. How about the 38 machine, Blake McCandless? He started all the way back in the 17th spot. He's up to 5th and is looking for some foothold underneath the 21 and the 20 car.
And you have to think also, this hasn't been a result of tire strategy or anything like that. We haven't seen a majority of the field go down pit road. You can pretty much end on the same tires that you started on in these street stocks. And Alfredo has just slowly but surely worked his way through the field. May have bought a couple of wrecks, but hasn't been too close to them either. So it's just been smooth sailing. The 38 car is just that fast. He makes his way by Max Kinnon, who has been at the front all evening long. But Anthony Alfredo continuing his march to the front.
Ever so quietly, just picking off cars one by one by one by one. As you see David Schildhouse trying to bump drive Preston Pardis past TJ Majors, who's controlled this thing at the front. You take a look at the point standings, though, it is ever so close amongst that group in the back. They are dead level as you see a huge block a little bit further back. That was Nick Sanchez, who took Matt Stolnick all the way to the apron and then some. But for Alfredo, for the 41 machine of Stolnick, it's going to be super, super close.
It certainly is, so he has to try and get every point that he can before this race is over. Currently has a little bit of a cushion sitting in that 4th spot, but he needs to get a little bit more in case something were to happen to other competitors or for him even. So he has to be careful and try to get a good finish here today as you ride on board with David Schildhouse sitting in that 3rd spot.
This is one of Schildhouse's best runs throughout the season, and he's had some speed, just not necessarily the luck, but the community manager for Kligerman Sport and spotter for Isaac Gann of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, and another Twitch streamer too, working over the rear. Oh, he set up Preston Pardis perfectly there with the late move into 3 to take over 2nd. That's a big move for the North Forest Racing man, Blake.
It is, and I was actually just about to comment how Schildhouse may be content to ride in line right there unless he thinks he can go get the lead. We've seen time and time again on these restarts, the driver in 3rd seems to be able to always make that pass in 1 and 2 for 2nd. So I was thinking if David thinks this is going to go yellow for a little bit, why not push Preston Pardis, not push the issue, get 3rd on that restart, and then be able to make a move a 2nd. But Schildhouse isn't wasting any time. He tried to poke low of TJ Majors there for the race lead, just wasn't able to get it done that time. So Schildhouse, he's not messing around. He's trying to get the race lead here. And of course, remember these two last week at Dover, they had a little bit of contact. So we'll see how they race each other.
Spotter versus spotter for the race lead. Schildhouse, who has experience spotting in real life in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, versus TJ Majors spotter for Joey Logano in the NASCAR Cup Series. So we'll see who can spot themselves P1 once this battle clears up. Meanwhile, good stuff right behind them as well. Anthony Alfredo leads a wild pack because Preston Pardus, Nick Sanchez, Max Kinnon absolutely going after one another, trying to climb their way up towards Alfredo and eventually to Majors and Schildhouse at the pointy end of the field.
Certainly is. Keeping an eye through the field right now. Mostly the couple of cars are running single file pretty much until you go all the way back to the 14th, 15th position to battle for side-by-side between Steve Affont and Shane Van Gisbergen, who are battling it right now. Van Gisbergen goes to the top side of the racetrack, doing what we saw Steve Affont do during the heat race earlier today as he's trying to make that outside lane work. But here comes Greg Stump to the inside of him as they work down the back straightaway.
Greg Stump down there, the 10 machine of TJ Cummings gets into Greg Stump and sends him sideways. They bounce off of each other again. I saw Ron Capps blitz beneath them all. Gaywood parts the seas, and looks like everybody else towards the back of the field is going to make it through, but that is not what TJ Cummings needs. Remember, he came into tonight on the outside looking in and needs a good run in order to have any shot at making the championship four for a second consecutive season. It's going to take big work now, I think, from the 10 machine in order to have any sort of shot at making that happen, as you see how he got into Stump a few laps ago.
I mean, what a save right there. I mean, 90 degrees sideways, 78 turns around. Of course, the rest of the field able to go on by, but that is some remarkable stuff right there to be able to get that going in the right direction. It is not easy to save those cars. Not easy to know if you're going to get hit, if traffic's going to be there, but just an incredible job right there by the 78. Stump able to hang on to it. He loses a ton of spots. He probably would have liked a caution there to slow things down and get everything re-racked, but still an amazing job right there, and we still had this battle for the lead going on between Majors and David Schildhouse.
Still all over the place. Contact between the two as Schildhouse finally got a good enough run to get to the inside of TJ Majors, and it is a proper battle for the race lead at the Rock as Schildhouse in the 20 car goes down to the bottom. Of course, David Schildhouse, if you don't know, grew up a Matt Kenseth fan and some pretty good memories. If you think back to 2003, this is the track that Kenseth claimed his one and only Winston Cup championship at. Schildhouse trying to do his hero a solid and win here as well, but Majors gets back to the bottom no sooner than Schildhouse had gone up top, and Schildhouse is going to try and get back to the inside once again. He gets into the back of the 22 machine though, and he'll have to back off just a little bit. That'll bring Anthony Alfredo into the mix and make it a 3-car battle for the race lead.
Why don't we add a couple of more cars into this battle, James Pike, as we now see Preston Pardus, Nick Sanchez, and let's throw in Brandon Brown as well and Max Kinnon. They are right there. We got a hornet's nest for the battle for the race lead. Single file right now, but TJ Majors, David Schildhouse, with those two battling, has brought the rest of the field as the caution is out once again.
So there's the yellow flag that I think Greg Stump wanted. It is actually for Steve Affont in the 11 machine, who got sideways off the corner and I think made contact with Ford Martin in the 07. We'll take a look at the replay to see just what happened, but those two come together on the exit of turn 2, and indeed it is contact between the 07 and the 11 machine. Ford just pounded the fence and got tight there. He made contact with Matt Stoldak, I believe. Although there was a lot of bumping and banging between the 41, Van Gisbergen, and the 11 machine up top too. But it's a fault that goes sideways in front of the racing group and actually brings out this most recent yellow flag.
No, I gotta say, I know there's a lot of industry folk in this series, and that's what makes it so nice, right? You get to see all these personalities, media, drivers, everybody, a conglomeration to bring them all together. You know, you would think at the beginning of when this was put together that this was made to be an idea that brings everybody together. Let's go have some fun in iRacing. James, I don't know about you. I don't know if this makes friendships or if it makes more enemies in this industry, because just hearing the banter going back and forth, you race these guys week after week and you get together. I'm just not sure. I think as many friendships are probably made in this series. I think you could argue that there are just as many souring relationships as a result of a lot of these guys running all these different tracks and running this series.
You certainly can make that point, but I think it's the point of Monday Night Racing, and this is something that Ford Martin and Paul Sutton had made clear from the get-go, that this is a league that wants to race hard and compete hard, but it's not going to take itself too seriously. Hence why we have fast repairs. Hence why we have multiple wave arounds, so that people who wreck early can get back into contention if they have issues early on. It's not like some of the more serious leagues out there where you have no fast repairs and you have no luck if you get caught up in a wreck on lap 15. So everybody's still in contention usually when we get to about lap 85 or 90 or so, and you can't really rule anybody out, which is part of the nature of things here, but part of the beauty of it as well. We'll take a moment to remind you all that tonight's broadcast of Monday Night Racing is brought to you by Max Pappas Innovations, who have partnered to hold a contest each and every week on Twitter to give away an MPI gift card. And over this past week, fans have been tweeting for their chance to win. This week's winner is Manish B21 on Twitter, the winner of the $25 gift card from our friends at Max Pappas Innovations, the world's premier manufacturer of steering wheels, that was founded in 2009 by Max and his wife Tatiana in Mooresville, North Carolina. MPI takes every aspect of construction and safety to heart to build their products in the most accurate and dedicated way possible. MPI partners have claimed 13 NASCAR championships, 4 World of Outlaws titles, 2 IndyCar titles, 2 Australian Supercars championships, and 1 NHRA title. You can find out more about them at www.maxpappasinc.com. Get a look at some of these great camera shots by Dougie Beard as the lights are off on the pace car, and we'll get set to go green flag racing. Brandon Brown, your race leader. And we've not had the chance to talk about Brandon, but Taylor Burris, Brandon Brown, the manager of Richmond Raceway eSports, fueled by Sunoco, behind the marketing push that you see with Jimmy Mullis and Zach Novak, one of the best to do it at that level in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. But Brandon is very much an old school driver at heart. He loves cars that don't have a lot of downforce, that have a decent amount of power, and old school racetracks that test you like this. So not a surprise that although he's not had a lot of luck in this season of Monday Night Racing, you look at places like here, like North Wilkesboro, like Martinsville, like Richmond, that's where Brandon tends to excel. And in this sense, Rockingham being arguably his favorite track, outside of Richmond, of course, in all of iRacing, in that sense, I'm not surprised to see him up here, even though the other results he's had this year might not necessarily make you think that he would be up here.
It certainly is the case, and that's one of the things that we love about Monday Night Racing. Yes, we have some of our heavy hitters who are going to be challenging for the race win week in and week out, but when you have that right car and track combination, you can get a surprise winner or surprise front runner, as like we see with Brandon Brown. He's been running inside the top 10 for a majority of the night's race here at Rockingham Speedway. And as we see a couple of other drivers who are also working their way up to the field. Jason Keffer running inside the top 5 right now. Brett Baldeck inside the top 10. Granted, he didn't come down pit road like the rest of the field is. First car to come off pit road would have to be around TJ Majors and sitting in 13th as a former race leader. So this is going to be the race where we see some of the heavy hitters, what they can do towards the back half, and some of the drivers who are towards the back half up at the front see what they can do as well.
Brown, Kennan, and DeGroot all have stayed out for the entirety of this race as we approach the final 20 laps in the Big Green Egg 100 for Monday Night Racing at Rockingham Speedway. Everybody else is coming down pit road at some point, so this is track position versus tire wear as Brandon Brown gets out front and gets us going back of the green flag once again. Big moves around this group up in second or third, but trouble a little bit further back. 5, 6 cars into the fence and the yellow flag out immediately. I saw Anthony Alfredo involved in it, but there was more than just the 38 that got caught up in that mess over in 1 and 2, Blake.
There was David Schildhouse, Devin Henry. Of course, you could see another wild ride for Gabe Wood. He gets involved in it as well. Dylan Welch, Will Rogers, Nick Sanchez, Preston Pardis, DJ Cummings. I mean, it spared nobody here, and it's all this 3 wide, 4 for a moment, and I just didn't think that could work. Alfredo trying to shoot the gap there. Dylan Welch is there. 4 wide, just what wasn't meant to be entering turn 1 right there.
you could, I think, for a split second, make the argument that they were 5 wide in that corner just before Dylan Welch and Anthony Alfredo made contact. That's how nuts it was in that restart. But TB, that's fresh tires trying to get the track position versus older tires who don't quite have as much grip.
It certainly is the case, as we just saw that as you're now on board. Let's see, that is going to be Gabe Wood. We're going to see what happened to him as you're on board with him. Coming to the finish line here to start the lap here as they dive it into turn 1 and 2. You'll see right there, 5 wide right there. They try to make it work, and then utter chaos. Gabe Wood almost makes it through, and then there's the contact to the rear of his street stock from Dylan Welch, and then I think one more big heavy contact for the number 50 of Gabe Wood as he tries to get out of the way, and there it is again with Dylan Welch.
He almost had the right idea. He was going backwards to the middle of turn 2, just trying to make sure that his car was okay. And then the huge contact with Dylan Welch right at the end of that, which I would say ended Dylan Welch's day, and I believe also may put a dampener on Gabe Wood's chances to finish off this race. Engine damage galore to the 50 machine, and certainly isn't going to help his case to try and make it through into the round of 7 either. We'll take a look at the point standings in just a bit and see where he stands, but not before we go side by side for a few moments to bring you a word from our partners before we come back for the final 20 laps of action in the Big Green Egg 100 from Rockingham Speedway. You're watching Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring from the Rock on Podium eSports.
For years, people had to get professional tools off of a truck.
That's me.
But we know that tool trucks only come around maybe once a week.
You want to go check out what's in the van?
Now Dave knows that his NAPA Auto Parts store delivers parts multiple times a day to his shop, and they carry the professional line of Carlyle tools. Carlyle offers quality tools with a lifetime warranty on its hand tools and a significant savings over mobile tool trucks. And you can forget about the weekly payments and expensive finance charges.
Just pay me, every week for the rest of your life.
Carlyle Tools, as close as your local NAPA Auto Parts store.
Welcome back to Podium eSports coverage of the Big Green Egg 100 from Rockingham Speedway. This is the final race of the round of 10 in the Monday Night Racing playoffs for Season 2. James Pike, Taylor Burris, Blake McCandless, and Ryan Bauer bringing you the racing from the Rock. Brandon Brown for Richmond Raceway Esports is your race leader, and I believe we will have lights out on the pace car this time by, which means we'll get the restart coming to lap 83 of 100, which will leave us with 18 laps to go in this event. And this really does become a question of track position versus everything else, Taylor Burris. And does this gamble pay off for Brandon Brown, where he has said, I don't care if I have worn tires, I just want the clean racetrack more than anything else, because I think that's more important than being stuck in the back and getting caught up in someone else's mess. We saw that happen with David Silthouse just a moment ago. He got some damage after being at the front of this field for just about all of the first 3 quarters of this race. So where do we stand on this, and what should we be watching for down that front?
Well, we should probably see some drivers who are towards the back half of the field with those fresh tires working their way up to the field quickly. But for those who have old tires, watch and see what they can do. See if there's any tire spin from some of them, especially from Brandon Brown, Max Kennan, and Nick DeGroot. See if they can take care of their equipment.
All eyes on Brandon Brown as he gets us back going. Green flag out in the air once again. Vargas got a decent restart. Kennan got a great one, though. Read the jump of the 12 perfectly. And Max Kennan, who needs a good finish to lock himself into the round of 7, immediately up to the top of the racetrack and gone. He takes off. A good run, a big move. Brown goes down to the inside to block, but it's the 21 of the 12 for the race lead with Ryan Vargas in tow.
Well, at Vargas in tow, he's got those fresh tires along with him. He came down on lap 46, so maybe a little bit fresher there for Vargas, who maybe also used that fast repair while he was down there. He's trying to arc it out and get a good run off the corner. You can just see how much he digs there through the center as we ride along with Nick DeGroot. There's one car in the wall and one, but they continue to keep it rolling forward.
Max Kennan gave Brandon Brown a shot, moved him up the racetrack, got to the inside, and should be able to take over the race lead, as it looks like there was some contact maybe between Brown and Vargas, but Brandon Brown stuck up top. McKinnon has the bottom, and Vargas has the inside to the 12 cars. He tries to get second back, but they are all together at the front. Not really much room for error. If any one of these drivers makes a mistake in the middle of the corner, it could get wild. It could get wild anyway, though. Here comes Vargas to make it 3 wide into 3.
3 wide battle for the race lead as they come off of turn number 4. You will see Max Cannon holding that middle lane. Vargas looks to the inside. DeGroot is going to push him with Justin Malillo sitting in 4th.
Where did Justin Malillo come from in all of this? He was sideways on the front straightaway some 20 laps ago after some contact with Kyle Busch, and all of a sudden Justin Malillo is up into the top 5 late in the going.
He has made his way forward, but again, the question is going to be, are all these drivers marching through the field on fresh tires? Are they going to have enough? TJ Majors, David Schildhaus, Preston Pardis, this isn't going to help their cause. Another yellow flag.
Devin Henry involved. Brett Baldeck was sideways and up on his lid. I think Steven Ellis just managed to escape this one, but they were all over the place just a little bit further back. We'll take a look at the incident here. Baldeck certainly got the worst of it, but there were more than a few cars that got their fair share of this, Taylor Burris.
Certainly did. You see Devin Henry right there. Gets contact from Nick Sanchez, sent him around, and then there's the hard contact for Brett Baldeck. Big issue right there.
Baldeck with the big send up into the fence and into the wall outside of turn 4, so he'll have to regroup, get that car fixed up, and may need to come down pit road for service. I'm not sure if he's used his fast repair yet, but Sanchez just tried to go for a hole that closed before he could get to it, Blake McCandless. I think that's the simple answer to that wreck.
I think you're exactly right. We're right on here with Sanchez once again. Yeah, just gets in the back. And again, these street stocks aren't necessarily very thin cars. They're wider than you would believe. And Sanchez there just obviously tried to shoot a gap and just wasn't sure if there was enough room to make it. But we're late in the going. It's hard to make up spots. Everybody's about wide open. And you see right there, that hole just closes up so quickly. It's tough to blame that one on the 96.
At that point, and especially this late in the race, Taylor Burris, you just have to try and get the track position if you're that far back, because you're not going to have a shot to win this thing off a restart if you're buried in 18th. You've got to at least get yourself, I think, into the top 10 on the restart. Now, these being street stocks, we've seen wild things happen. There was a crazy wreck in the street stock race we ran at Phoenix back in December. So you could come from about 10th and win this, I think, with these cars in a way that you might not necessarily be able to. And you combine that with what we saw last week where Ryan Vargas was, I think, 5th coming to the white flag and got the victory. It's not impossible, but you do need to help yourself out where you can.
It certainly is. Consider it one of the fundamentals of racing, having balance. You want the balance of being aggressive, but yet patient. You don't want yourself to be caught up in someone else's incident or cause an incident where you can bring damage to yourself. But yet you also want to go and make sure that you have that aggressiveness to where you take a pole that is available for you, that you make a pass that's needed for you in order to have a shot of victory or at least getting a good position. And in some cases, for here tonight, a chance to move on to the round of 7.
It's a tight point battle, but I think to that end, we've got to give credit to Max Ken and Blake McCandless, who was right on the edge coming into this night. And not to say that it will hold. We're certainly far from the end of this race, but after the run he's had, if it doesn't pan out for him, I don't think we can say he didn't give it his best effort, because he's been top 5 pretty much all night long.
Yeah, I was about to say Max Kinnon has been so strong all night, was up there on those couple of restarts, changing in and out of the lead as TJ Majors has been up front for most of the night, but certainly so. It hasn't been for a lack of effort here for Max Kinnon tonight, just some unfortunate circumstances. Tough to see him go out, but like you said, we still have over 10 laps to go, about 10 laps to go when we get this restart. So you never know what could happen. We have seen some crazy finishes in the Monday Night Racing League. Dover last week was one of them. So who knows? We may be in store for a little bit of something, and Max Kinnon may have luck on his side. We'll just have to find out.
nothing is certain, nothing is assured, and nothing is written in stone at this stage. That's the one thing everybody has to keep in mind. We still have 10 laps to race in this Big Green Egg 100, and there's a lot that can happen in that time frame. As Ryan Vargas has this lined up, lights are off on the pace car, and we'll get set to go. Green flag racing once again. Vargas pitted some 40 laps ago. DeGroot, Kennan, and Brown are the three who have not come down pit road all race long. We'll see if that makes any sort of difference whatsoever, but Vargas, who hosted the big NutriShop E-Street Stock Showdown at Auto Club a month and change ago, it was back in January, now has control of this field, trying to go for back-to-back wins at as many weeks. He got a good restart. Big move there from Shane Van Gisbergen, just behind Justin Melillo. He forced his way underneath Melillo's machine, and Melillo eventually was able to get it going and cut down underneath, but they are all over the place right around the 97. There goes TJ Majors down to the bottom. Jason Kepper making moves as everybody tries to get those last few little bits of track position in the final 10 laps of this race.
We see TJ Majors, Preston Partis working together off turn number 4 to get around SVG as they come across the start-finish line here. 9 laps to go here at Rockingham Speedway. SVG trying to work the outside lane to the best of his ability, but TJ Majors with the fresher tires gets ahead.
TJ Majors with the fresh rubber up to 7th now, looking to try and get around Melillo to get the 6th spot. Vargas still has Max Kennan on his rear bumper, though. No room to escape if you are the number 23 machine leading this field. And there goes Kennan to the inside. He got his nose there. And there goes Max Kennan trying to win his way into the round of 7.
Kennan able to make his way forward. What a great move. The problem is a little bit of draft here in these street stocks. Is he going to be able to hang on? Is it going to be enough? He needs these guys behind him to start battling, but I don't even think that matters. Right now, Kennan off of 4. Gets a nice little run as one car loose, saves it behind them. They'll keep it going green. You can see all the smoke there in 3 and 4. Cars just going everywhere, trying to get everything they can here with 7 to go.
It was Van Gisbergen and Schildhouse that were sideways back there. Meanwhile, Brandon Brown started to reel in Max Kennan just a bit, and Nick DeGroot has closed in on Ryan Vargas. This is 4 cars racing for the lead. TJ Majors has made it back up to 5th. I just don't know if he'll have enough time to get to the front, coming to 6 laps to go at the Rock.
He's going to need a caution if he wants to have a shot at winning here at Rockingham Speedway, but he is definitely trying his best to reel him in. He's about 1.4 seconds back from the lead pack of the top 4. He's starting to gain a little bit more each and every time they come off corner exit, but right now as the top 2 are battling, we see Brandon Brown look to the inside of Max Kennan.
Brandon Brown tried to get the run. Kennan went down to the apron to try and stop it. 5 laps to go, but not before the yellow flag comes out. I believe Greg Stumpf in trouble once again in the 78 machine. Contact with Mark Robillas in the 69 at the back of the field, and looks like Steve Affont in the 11 machine also swept up in this incident, and Drew Welker as well. So some of our last chance qualifier drivers mixing it up and bouncing off each other in the back.
Bouncing off each other, and again, this all really starts with Steve Affont, who we've seen this a couple of times, and again, Rockingham, again, it gets so tight off of turn 2. You can see right here, the 11 just scrapes the wall, and it's just one of those things, the wall kind of chew you up, spit you out, and eventually you're just bouncing off of it before you know what's going on, and of course, just trying to avoid Affont, who was bouncing on the wall. Robillas comes down, gets into the 78, spins him around. It's just one of those things here at Rockingham. You just cannot let up for a second, because even just running there on the back straightaway, if you barely arc out and scrape the outside wall, this is what can happen in a street stock. You can climb that fence, and just makes it really tough for anybody. You can see it right there. Gets right into the Thunder Alley word mark right there. That's why they call it Thunder Alley.
Yeah, this is a narrow back straightaway that I think people realize. You see this and you look at it, and you figure you got room for about 2 or 3 cars, and then you actually start racing it, and it's a different story altogether. That's the problem that you tend to run into when you see these cars go after it at the Rock, and especially with the way turn 2 narrows. It's not totally like Dover, but there is that funnel effect that you have on the exit of 2 coming down the back straightaway. So not a huge surprise that we've seen our fair share of incidents start at that point of the racetrack. As these replays wrap up, we'll take a moment to remind you all of all the action you can find in the world of iRacing coming up over the next week. Tomorrow night, the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series is back in action. Round 3 from Las Vegas Motor Speedway will come your way at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Pre-race will start then. Race coverage starts at 9 on iRacing's Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. Then you can head to twitch.tv/Podium2 and Podium's Facebook and YouTube for the next round of the Dirt Sprint Car Championship Series from Eldora Speedway. The kickoff to the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series from Las Vegas. Drivers competing for their spot in the 2022 Coke Series. That kicks off at 9 p.m. Eastern this Thursday, March 4th. Podium eSports, the home of top split coverage all year long. We'll see them tackle Sin City first. PCA Sim Racing is back for the spring. They'll head to Watkins Glen to kick off their 2021 campaign Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on their own YouTube channel. Then it's the MPI Cup Series All-Star Race from Kansas Speedway on Sunday night, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/Podium Esports. And then Monday Night Racing back next week with the Porsche 911 RSR at Montreal, 8 p.m. March 8th, twitch.tv/Podium2, along with the YouTube and the Facebook pages. And speaking of the Road to Pro qualifying series, Blake McCandless, please tell the people the story about your truck, because it is glorious and beautiful and Cosmin Ioneshu, or Iwaneshu. People say it a million different ways, we know, but just the story behind that, because it is so unique amongst a lot of drivers competing on Thursday night.
It really is special and near and dear to my heart. My granddad he just won the paint scheme on his 1968 Dodge Dart. Is amazing, and I've always loved it. You know, as a kid, seeing pictures of it, even having it in our family museum now, it's so incredible. And to have it now recreated in iRacing, Cosman did such a spectacular job with it. I posted a little video reveal on Twitter. I know we got a race here to do, but very proud to be representing that and try to, you know, have a fast truck at Las Vegas on Thursday night.
Also, hands up if you had 1910 Fruit Gum Company as the backing soundtrack to an iRacing video.
That song is catchy.
Never would have guessed that. So go check Mr. F4 Speed on Twitter if you want to see that. We'll bring you the end of the action to the Big Green Egg 100, because we are going to have it tight. 2 laps to settle it, restart under review. It's going to be all over the place as they bounce off one another. Kenny got a great jump, though.
Here they come off of turn number 2 down Thunder Alley. Great battle for the race lead as they battle for second as well, as we see Nick DeGroot go to the outside.
Sliding around, bouncing around. Looks like Brandon Brown's going to have one more shot here on this final lap, with lots of company charging towards the end. White flag as they head to one for the final time.
White flag. One car was flipping in the back. It was Ron Capps, but didn't happen before they got to the white. But Max Kinnon looks like he may lock himself into the round of 7 as he heads into 3 for the final time.
If he can hang on to it, it's going to be Brandon Brown's last shot in 3 and 4, and it'll be a good run, but it won't be enough. Max Kinnon had to win to secure his place in the round of 7, and he will do just that, going to victory lane for the first time in Season 2. He gets it done in the Big Green Egg 100 at Rockingham Speedway and gets his first ever victory in Monday Night Racing to boot. But Max Kinnon, when he needed the win the most, gets the win the most, and the 21 machine advances to the round of 7, TB.
What a great performance. What a drive for Max Kinnon. I mean, he was up towards the front of the field at the beginning of the race, fell back a little bit, was able to claw his way back up to the front of the field and take home a win where he needed to clinch a spot into the round of 7, and he does it. So I'm pretty sure his boss man, Kyle Busch, is pretty happy about this win for him tonight.
A big, big win for Max Kinnon, who has been under the gun pretty much the entirety of these playoffs. He's been on the cut line or outside of the cut line just about every single race. And finally, he can breathe easy for a little bit because he's got a victory in Monday Night Racing. Max Kinnon, your winner, ahead of Brandon Brown, who comes home a season's best second place. TJ Majors finishes in the 3rd spot, 4th to Preston Pardis. Ryan Vargas came home in the 5th spot, 6th to Nick DeGroot. Ruben Garcia Jr. was 7th. Nick Sanchez, up and down day, finishes in 8th. And Justin Malillo finished in the 9th spot, and 10th to Shane Van Gisbergen.
So we move on through the rest of the field. In 11th, you'll find Ron Capps was able to come home with a good finish. So we'll have to see how he does in the points, but I think it's safe to say he is eliminated. Anthony Alfredo in 12th, David Shieldhouse 13th, Matt Stolneck in 14th, Robbie Lyons in 15th, Garrett Miller sits in 16th, but Ford Martin 17th, DJ Cummings 18th, Michael Massey's 19th, and Cody Moore rounds out your top 20.
Steve Affont had an up and down night. He was in 21st. 22nd goes to Stephen Ellis. Devin Henry was scored in 23rd. 24th to Drew Walker. 25th was Greg Stumpf. 26th was Paul Sutton. 27th, Mark Rabillis. 28th, Jason Keffer. 29th, Gabe Wood. Not a good night for him. Brett Baldick finished up in 30th, and then Will Rogers, Dylan Welch, and Kyle Busch. Tough luck for these cats as they went out early, finishing 23, 24 laps down, respectively.
A tough night at the end for KV and Dylan Welch, but it is Max Kedden who gets the job done at the Rock and advances into the next round of the playoffs, who now joins us in the booth. And Max, it's been tricky, it's been tough at points, but here you are, finally a Monday Night Racing victor and off to the round of 7-2. How good does it feel?
Oh, it feels amazing. It's a long time coming. I just survive in advance is what I always say. Gosh, it's been tough trying to get a win, especially after last week, just wrecking on the last lap.
How tough has it been for you in these playoffs? We mentioned it right before you came in here that you have not had a comfortable place at any point since the playoffs began. You've been near the cut line, you've been at the cut line, you really have not had a lot of room for error. So how tough has this been for you over the past few weeks, and how much more rewarding does it make it to finally get a victory?
Oh, it just feels amazing. I mean, it's hard to handle the stress of being on that cut line every week, but you just got to go into every race like it's just the same one as the one before, and it's just a regular race, and it seems to be that mentality works out in the end.
So now you finally get the chance to some degree lay low, but you've got a different test on your hands next week. The Porsches at the Circuit Jules Villeneuve in Montreal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what thought? Yeah, I was about to say, any thoughts on that? Any expectations there?
Just trying to keep it on the racetrack. That's the main thing with road courses in these series is as soon as you get off in the grass, you're gone. But I just want to thank my spotter, Tom Miller. He's amazing, and all the people that are behind me every week.
All the folks that make it possible for you. Who else do you need to thank, Max, for victory number one?
My dad, Jerry Kennan. He's a crew chief in NASCAR, and he tries his best to help me out every week and give me tips on what to do and where to go. I just can't thank him enough.
Well, Max, congratulations. You are a Monday Night Racing winner. Enjoy it. We'll see you next week in Canada.
All righty. See y'all.
There is Max Kennan. Also of note, Blake did try and get in the link to that paint scheme that he talked about. Aping old Herb's Dodge Dart from the late 1960s for his Road to Pro campaign, which takes full advantage of the custom number feature of iRacing, by the way. There's no need for numbers on that thing. So we'll see that Chevy in action on Thursday night. But we'll turn it over to... let's go to Blake here with Brandon Brown. There's some Coke Series connections across the board, but this is also Brandon's best run by a long shot in this Monday Night Racing season. So we'll turn it over to Blake and let him speak with our runner-up finisher.
You know, there's something about this, James, that doesn't surprise me all too much. I know Brandon Brown not only loves this track, he loves driving the 1987 Chevy Monte Carlos and Ford Thunderbirds that I think translate very well into what we saw driving tonight. And how did that experience, I'm curious, Brandon, on how that experience would have helped you here tonight?
It helped me, to as many races that I've run here in those cars. It helped me get a good Q run, and then it helped me save tires enough to stay with the lead pack the whole time. But I think the biggest thing that helped me was knowing there were going to be a bunch of wrecks staying out there when all the leaders pitted. So we stayed out, and TJ and those guys could never really get back up to us, and we had just enough time to battle out me and Max.
Now, that is something from those cars that doesn't really apply to what we're doing tonight. Obviously, those cars, the tires wear so significantly. But is that something that you kind of just planned on all night, that you were just going to stay out the whole night and you didn't think the fall off was worth coming down pit road if we had a late yellow?
Yep, I figured that there would be a significant number of cautions because Rockingham's one of the toughest tracks on the server. So I just saved enough tire getting into the corner, gave up a few spots, and then there at the end had enough to stay out and still be pretty darn fast.
It seems like y'all definitely had enough of that, but I'll go ahead and throw it to you one more time, Brandon. I know very proud Richmond Raceway eSports. You got a big race coming up tomorrow night. I'll let you talk all about it and give a shout out to anybody you need to. Oh,
thanks, guys. We got Jimmy Mullis defending Las Vegas winner, so we're hoping that he can get it done again. I know Zach and him they're really fast and really excited about tomorrow night. But yeah, that's the big race. That's the one that potentially pays all the money at the end of the season, and I'm just thrilled that I get to be in this position to be the manager of the team and get the race in this series. Definitely want to thank Sunoco, Sim Seats, because I'm sitting in my Sim seat, and my buddy Sam for spotting me tonight. Sam Martin, thanks, bud.
You did a great job, clearly. Brandon Brown brings it home in P2 with that tire strategy. And you know what? We'll go ahead and throw down to Taylor Burris. Believe he's caught up with TJ Majors, who dominated a large portion of this night, just not able to get back up to the field or to the front of the field in time.
Here we are with TJ, and TJ just had a dominant car all race long, just ran out of time. Tell us, though, overall your thoughts of how the racing was for you in your 22 Ford.
It's good racing. This is a fairly easy track in a street stock, so pretty competitive race. You can get a run on any almost with the draft. So just wanted to pit late for tires, but I probably shouldn't have now that I didn't win. So obviously that was the wrong decision, but just needed a couple less yellows there at the end. Really needed a couple less in the middle part there near the end, but then I needed one really late.
Well, with that, as we look ahead to the next round at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve with the Porsche 911s, your thoughts on how are you looking forward to being prepared for that race in the coming weeks?
Yeah, I mean, let's go see how we do. I'm not really a road course guy. I'm sure there'll be a couple guys in there that'll be quite a bit better than the others, but it'll be fun. It'll be this is a good group to get in there and mix it up with, so looking forward to it.
All right, well, before we let you go, anyone you'd like to say thank you to?
Appreciate you guys putting it on, and all these guys coming out for a big field every week makes it exciting.
All right, that is TJ Majors, your spotter for Joey Logano, and finishing in third place here tonight.
Also of note, catch the Winston Racing contingency panel on that car. A nod to the Winston Cup era way back in the day that rose to prominence largely with Rockingham. Those two grew in stature over the course of the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s until NASCAR fulfilled its manifest destiny and became the nationwide phenomenon that we know today, but certainly has its roots in North Carolina more so than just about any other state in the Union. Now, we know that Max Kennan is good to go. He will be in the round of seven, no matter what. We are waiting to see if there are any changes that come about with the shuffles and the point standings, and if any of the late rulings here end up changing things. Can tell you that Nick Sanchez got moved to the very last car on the lead lap, so 28 for changing lanes before the start-finish line on that final restart. So we'll see what goes and see how nuts it is, but it was a tight battle no matter what, Taylor Burris.
It certainly was, and this is why we have these playoff races, and it's so critical to get every spot. Every position will count for these drivers, except for, of course, Max Kennan, who's guaranteed a spot. But for everybody else, it's still a wait-and-see kind of game to see who will move on to the round of seven.
Everybody waiting for the drum roll and waiting for this moment of anticipation. Blake McCandless, which always, I would imagine, has to be really, really tricky. Now, you see Kennan and Stolnick tied there, so we'll wait and see if Race Control can give us an update on which two of those three end up advancing, because we know Kennan is in off of his victory, even though he's tied on points. So it means that one of Alfredo or Stolnick is going home, and I suspect, based off of the fact that Alfredo's got more wins than Stolnick, it is likely Matt Stolnick who is the first one on the outside looking in, but we will wait and see if we can get confirmation from Race Control to confirm that our group is going to include a Will Rogers and is going to include some of the other folks that were up at the top of the board, a Nick DeGroot, a Kyle Busch, a Preston Pardus, even a Gabe Wood, who ended up having enough room to breathe at the end of it all after a really, really tough run. So we'll see what goes, but definitely going to be tricky, and we'll see how it all hangs out. But we can tell you about some of the upcoming events that you'll see in the world of iRacing over the course of the next few days, which continues with the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. You've got the best of the best in stock car sim racing coming your way tomorrow night. Pre-race begins at 8:30. Race coverage begins at 9. You can watch all of it on twitch.tv/iRacing or their Facebook or their YouTube. Not a huge shocker to hear Brandon Brown so excited when he talks about his drivers from Richmond Raceway eSports fueled by Sunoco. They were incredibly fast back in September when the series went there. Jimmy Mullis got the victory in that race, and I would expect that Jimmy should be pretty quick and in contention when we get to Sin City tomorrow evening, as should Zach as well, who has started, I think, to find his sea legs after just a terrible run of bad luck throughout the 2020 season. It was not indicative of his talent, his level as a driver, which we saw in the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender Series last year, and you figure those two will be in contention with some of the other folks as well. The Dirt Sprint Car Championship Series then comes to Podium eSports a night later. Wednesday night, they'll head to Eldora Speedway, and you'll see all the action on twitch.tv/Podium 2 at 9 p.m. Eastern, Wednesday night, March 3rd. Then it's the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series. Say that 10 times fast if you want. But Las Vegas in the trucks. The road to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series properly begins there, more than anywhere else. The road to $300,000, as Evan likes to say, starts at Daytona for the 40 that make it, but the road to that series really begins the year before as the hopefuls on the outside looking in try to race their way into the Contender Series and get a spot as one of the 20 of the best in the Road to Pro Qualifying Series to go up against the drivers who finished 24th or lower in the point standings from the Coke Series in this 2021 season. But we'll have the top split broadcast each race and every race of the Road to Pro Qualifying Series this year. Top split you can see on the Podium eSports Twitch channel. Before Friday night, it's PCA Sim Racing from Watkins Glen. PCA Sim Racing back for a third year on Podium. They'll come your way 8 p.m. Eastern Friday night on the PCA Sim Racing YouTube channel. Then Sunday night, it's the MPI Cup Series from Kansas Speedway, their all-star race. So a lot of fun, a lot of bragging rights on the line, and a lot of high-line racing, I figure, going to feature in that one. 9:15 p.m. Eastern start on the Podium eSports Twitch channel before Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring is back in action. The round of 7 begins with the Porsche 911 RSR from Montreal. Second, Gilles Villeneuve is our home next Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Podium eSports backup Twitch Podium 2, and then the Podium eSports Facebook and YouTube pages. Should be wild at the end of this. Waiting on confirmation of points here. We got news that there were indeed some last-minute changes beyond what we showed you. So we'll wait and see if we can get those lined up, and I guess we can bring in our Bryant Shock Technologies race reporter Gabe Wood. Rather see what happened before I try to blow the world up. But Gabe, just a crazy race with no room to escape at the back.
Yeah, it sucks. I almost had that big wreck cleared, and then guys came down the racetrack after the wreck and ended up turning me upside down, or it turned me backwards, and then I was gonna reverse out of the wreck, and I thought I was clear low, and so I went to go do a J-turn. Unfortunately, I hit Dylan Welch, so that's definitely not what I wanted to do, and kind of hate it for myself because I would have made it through that wreck scot-free, pretty much. I only got turned, but I ended up really screwing myself, so that kind of sucked.
Tricky, but wild on the point side as well, too. You had a bit of a buffer coming into tonight, and it was very close as we sit here and wait for the official points. Where are your nerves at? Wondering whether or not you're good to go for the round of 7 or not?
I think we're sitting okay, but I'm not sure. Just really gonna have to wait and see where the points shake out. I mean, it's nothing really I can change, so I'm just gonna sit here and wait. As nothing I can do about it, and it's not like I hurt myself that wreck, so I can't be mad at anybody. I can't have a what if this guy didn't hit me? What if this guy didn't hit me? It's on me, so I really can't. I can't blame anybody else but myself.
We look at next week, playoffs or not, you look at a challenge like we have at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, the 911 RSRs there at a track like that. I don't know if you got the chance to watch the Porsche Tackler eSports Super Cup on Saturday, but they were bouncing off of each other. For road course racing, it looked like short track racing that we know on the oval side well. Do you expect it to be that complex, that complicated with this group when they go there Monday night, or should we see a bit of a different kind of racing?
That's something I'm going to look forward to. And whoa, just got the word.
Just got the word, got the text.
In by 2 points.
2 points. Good news.
Woo!
Well.
There's some whiskey on that table over there. Oh Lord.
So celebration drinks then.
Woo! until I get the recount on the points, and then it'll be depression drinks. But Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. It'll be a home race for my sponsor, Eric Beaudoin. Let me see if I can pronounce it correctly. Beaudoin, Beau. He gets a crack out of everybody mispronouncing it. Eric French name. But I love the track. I've never run there. Really, a really competitive race on iRacing. It just never comes up on the schedule. But I love the Porsche RSRs. I ran really good with them when we ran at Canadian Tire, and I'm hoping for a repeat performance, except for the part where I kind of choked it at the end.
So now that you are in the playoffs, and we can confirm that we've got the final points, and we'll bring them to you all in just a moment. But so now that you are good to go, does that change the way you run it next week, or
no?
Just gonna party up, party on, and try and do the best you can here.
Yeah, it'll be a tough week because I'll be flying back home from the Vegas Xfinity weekend. But I am coming home, so I'll be able to run that race, and I'll be able to keep fighting for the championship. And really, I'm thankful I was able to survive tonight. I mean, I messed up qualifying, put me in the back, or not in the back, mid-pack. And with the way these cars drive and the way people were checking up, it was bound to happen. I really put myself in that position, but that's a clear conscience on my end that I was able to make the chase. And yeah, I'm just going to go for it. I think the championship's going to come down to a couple guys, and hopefully I'm in that top 4.
I know there are plenty of people you need to thank for your run tonight and your run into the round of 7. So who do you need to send the shout-outs to?
Yeah, that's why I have the Don't Forget Us Gabe board. KSD CPA, great accounting firm. They are actually on our NASCAR Xfinity Series car for the 2021 season. I believe they're going to do quite a few races with us. They were on with us at Homestead, which is actually their home race. They're based out of Miami, Florida. And then they're going to be on our car in Vegas this weekend. So we're hoping to give those guys a good run. Shout out to one of their owners, Jeff. He is one of the best sponsors I've ever known. He's really helpful, and he's actually helping me out on the iRacing side, which is amazing. I've never really had a sponsored run. I've never really had a sponsor on iRacing, so it's kind of cool to be one of those guys. And I really thank Jeff for his support, and I know he's probably watching right now, so hi, Jeff. And then Eric Beaudoin, again, part of the Hire Eric campaign, but we got him a job, so we're on the Fire Eric campaign. So if anybody wants to collect his pink slip and want to give him a job somewhere else that isn't here, that'd be great. Oh, and real quick, shout out to my buddy Case Collenbach. He's my crew chief on the Xfinity side, and he's been in the spotter stand ever since Homestead for me. So he's really helped me get into the playoffs and get through the round of 7. And shout out to Mariah, his wife, and Bailey. They were both watching tonight.
Well, Gabe, thanks for all the time. Congratulations on making it into the round of 7, and we'll see you next Monday night. And at this point,
thanks, guys.
Let's take a look at the final point standings after the round of 7, which has been confirmed by Race Control and by the admins of Monday Night Racing, and it means that Gabe Wood is the last man in with Nick DeGroot, Max Kinnon, Preston Pardis, Anthony Alfredo, Matt Stolnick, Will Rogers, Gabe Wood, your 7. And it's DJ Cummings, Ron Capps, and the 2-time NASCAR Cup Series champion Kyle Busch after a rough run this evening. That trio going home at the end of all of this, Blake McCandless. So big-time names going home, but some big names still in the fight for the Monday Night Racing Championship as well.
Absolutely, James, and I think this is why this format is just so interesting. It's as much about just surviving, getting through, not being the bottom 3, and unfortunately for tonight, obviously Ron Capps just did not have any luck, technical issues last week, and ended up on his lid probably 2 or 3 times tonight. And then Kyle Busch, unfortunate for him, finished dead last in this race, and really all he would have probably had to have done is just limp it home, get a top 20. Just wasn't in the cards tonight, and unfortunately that's going to be enough to cost him a spot at the championship.
And Taylor Burris, we're going to jump into your realm of things next week. I guess our shared realm, PCA, near and dear to both our hearts, and we're going Porsche racing in the playoffs next Monday night in Montreal. Any expectations as to what we may see there and what kind of race we should get?
Well, of course, when we combine a little bit of the Porsche PCA with the Porsches here that are going to be racing, we're going to expect a lot of great tight racing. But also, if you think about it, the last time NASCAR drivers and competitors went to Circuit G's Villeneuve, it's been craziness. That's what you always expect with that racetrack when it comes to stock car drivers going to that track. Now with the Porsches, it might be a little less beating and banging, but still will provide a lot of excitement from beginning to end. I'm looking forward to going up to Montreal.
Should be a tremendous amount of fun, I think, to see how we go road course racing one more time in Season 2 before we go back to ovals for the final few events of the season. But for now, time to say goodnight from Rockingham. That'll conclude our coverage of the Big Green Egg 100 for Season 2 of Monday Night Racing, presented by Tufco Flooring here on Podium eSports. For Ford Martin, Paul Sutton, and Josh Mendoza at Monday Night Racing, for our team at Podium, Cisco Scaramuza, Gary Sexton, John Theodore, the man behind the buttons, Ryan Bauer, with the cameras from Dougie Beard, and for my colleagues in the booth, Taylor Burris and Blake McCandless, I am James Pike, the voice of Podium eSports. Thank you so much for watching our broadcast of Monday Night Racing. We look forward to seeing you next Monday night when we go Porsche racing in Montreal.